All right, all right. Let's get this thing started. Let's get this thing started. Ooh wee. All right. Um. Yeah. Yeah. We ready. We ready. Let's get down to this thing. All right. Welcome back to the People's Podcast, where the power meets the people. Um. Today's episode 9, I believe. Make money, save money, invest money, the art and science of financial literacy. Ooh, it's gonna be a hot one today, y'all. It's gonna be a hot one. We getting closer and closer. Um, let's jump right into it. So, make money, make money. There are literally an infinite number of ways to make money, especially in these days and times with the advent of technology and all that comes with that. The major factors you want to think about in terms of how you want to make money are the time you want to spend, the energy you want to spend, and then the level of happiness in the making of the money. So, for example, if job A, uh, you have to work, let's say you make $100,000 a year, and but it's high. You're on 8 hours a day, and when they say you're on 8 hours a day, you're really on 8 hours a day, and you're really, pedal to the metal. Versus 50K a year, but let's say the job is a little more chill. So that's what I mean when I say the time you want to spend versus and the energy you want to spend. Do you really want to be on like that? If you do, cool. If you don't, then you got to make the decision. You got to make a choice that's best for you. Um, Whatever scenario you decide, there's going to be no replacement for hard work, though. You're not going to make significant amounts of money without hard work. Usually, unless it gets like passed down to you or you hit the lottery or something. But regularly, making money is going to take some level of hard work. Even if you're doing it for an extended period of time, or you even doing it for shorter period of time, um, hard work is going to be a requirement. Um, so ideally, find something that you're passionate about and try to make some money off of it. Try to monetize it. Try to find something that you like doing and make some money doing it. There's an old saying that if you find a job that you like to do, you don't have to work a day in your life, which is somewhat true. But if you're looking for where to start, I'm trying to make some money. I'm trying to make some money. Start with what you like to do. Start with what you like to do and try to figure out a way to monetize and make money off of it and go from there. So, a good place to start, ask yourself, if every job in the world paid the same amount of money, what would be your top 3 jobs? Because this puts you in a place where you're thinking about the substance of your work instead of the monetary compensation. Um, and again, that's a great place to start because for my personal quality of life, what I'm doing is actually more important than the money I'm making. It may not be like that for everybody. So if that's not as important, then you can scrap that and say, and then you can Google what are the top 50 paying jobs in the world, and then just pick from there. Um, the route I prefer to go though is like see what you're passionate about, see what you're interested in, and then try to work from there. Okay. Um, you got I'm saying that to say you got to weigh all these things against your personal preferences because some people may prefer to do something they don't enjoy but make more money and spend more energy and more time making that money versus doing something that they enjoy, which is going to pay them less, which is totally cool. That's a personal preference. And that actually leads into a theme of this podcast, which is going to be or this particular episode, which is going to be never underestimate short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. And what that means is if this job is paying you 100K and this job is paying you 50K, but you enjoy the 50K job more, but your personal preference may be for the money, don't underestimate the ability to work the 100K job for 4, 5, 10 years. I mean, again, you got to balance it with your own personal values. Is that a long time for you to do something that you don't really enjoy versus doing something that you might enjoy a little bit more, but for less money? You have to make those decisions. But if you're on the grind and you're like, yo, I'm on the grind, I need the bread. Never underestimate short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, where you do the job that you don't even like to do, but it pays you more, and you stack it up, and then you have a plan for that money. Okay. So making money, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's no shortage of ways to make money in this society. And you can go from this route or you can go from this route. This route is like, I'm gonna lock in on what I like to do and what I'm passionate about, and I'm gonna try to make money from here, or I'm gonna lock in on the money and I'm gonna just see what I can stomach for however amount of time I'm trying to stomach it to make the bread that I need to make. Make the money. Next step, save money. This is a tough one. One of the most important things to understand about saving money is that it is about your habits with money, not how much money you're making. It is about your habits with money, not how much money you're making. For example, I've seen it time and time again, and there are plenty of demonstrated examples where a person makes more money and then they find new things to spend money on because their habits are the same. Okay. So so saving money is not actually about, I mean, obviously how much money you make helps, but more importantly are your habits when it comes to money. So if you want to save money, it starts with your habits and your relationship with money. Um, a few fundamental strategies is to separate wants versus needs when it comes to your spending. Okay. So needs are things that are essential to your survival. So like your bills, maybe your light bill, your rent, your phone bill, uh, your grocery shopping, and even grocery shopping can be broken down into wants and needs. But we won't get into all that. But break it down into things that are essential and things that are not essential. Wants are non-essential. So wants are like vacations, shopping, clothes, electronics, things of that nature. Okay. Things that you don't really need to survive, but you want. So essential versus non essential, want versus need. Make a distinction and be clear about your distinction. A way to do that: track your spending. Track your spending for a month. Track your spending for a month. Every single dollar that you spend on something, track it. Write it down, make a spreadsheet. If you use your debit and credit card most of the time, you can actually just go to your bank website and they'll have a layout of everything that you spend and even break it into categories for you. But track your spending for a month and then separate your spending for that month into wants and needs. What did I spend my money on that was a want? What did I spend my money on that was a need? What did I spend my money on that was essential? What did I spend my money on that was non-essential? And then be ready to cry. No, but seriously. But you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised at your spending habits and the things that you spend your money on. Um, and then after you track that spending, right? And you get that, this is what I spent on wants, this is what I spent it on needs. take the needs number. This is what I spent on the things that I needed. Take your monthly income and compare those two numbers. And hopefully your needs are less than your monthly income. And the difference between those two numbers is your discretionary spending that you can spend on, other different things. You can choose to spend it, shopping, vacations, et cetera, et cetera. You can choose to save it, save it for a purpose down the road, or you can choose to invest it, which is another form of creating wealth. Okay. So figure out, track your monthly spending, everything, everything. Split them up between wants and needs. Take your needs, compare it to your monthly income, and then the difference in that is your flexibility in terms of spending money on the things that you want. And what you decide to spend that money on will obviously have ramifications, because you can spend that money on something that only serves you in the present, or you can think long term. Which brings us back to one of the themes for this podcast or this episode, which is never underestimate short-term sacrifice for long-term gain. Maybe you don't go on vacation this year. Maybe you don't go shopping for stuff that you already have or think you need. Maybe you don't do that this year, and you just stack. You use that gap in that income between your wants and your monthly income. You use that gap and you use it to invest, because you're thinking long term. Or you can think short term, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can think short term, be like, hey, listen, I really need a vacation to the Caribbean right now. Do your thing. Do your thing. Just know there are gives and takes. There are pros and cons that come with every financial decision. Okay. Next up, invest money. Ooh. Let's get to it. Invest money. Let me start off by saying you should absolutely do your own fact checking, research, consultations with financial professionals before you do anything with your money, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you do that due diligence. Okay, take all this as information, and but always consult. Always consult, because everybody's situation is different, everybody's income is different. So make sure you're doing the right thing for your situation. Okay. A few different ways to invest. So you have this stack of money, you've been stacking, you've been sacrificing in the short term for long-term gain. You got this bundle of money. What you gonna do with it? Few different options. You can invest in yourself. And that means if you have a business idea that you've been trying to get off the ground, that needs some investment, or if you want some kind of extra job training, or maybe an additional kind of education that's going to eventually help your financial situation, you can use that money to invest in that. Some kind of mentorship. Sometimes mentorship is free, sometimes it's not. So if you have to pay for the mentorship for somebody that's already done it, and they are going to tell you, hey, this is how I did it, these are the steps that I did to do it, let me help you do it, that might be something you want to invest in with a trusted source. But whatever it is, you are investing in yourself. You are investing in your ideas, your own personal and professional development, and you betting on yourself. Just remember, when taking this route, utilize your resources, especially your free resources. The internet is a great resource. There's a lot of information. People that you know in your life who are successful in the ways that you're trying to be successful are a resource. People in your network, relationships that you build, whatever it is, utilize your resources. And then just remember that the higher the dollar amount that you're going to invest, the more research and um, the more due diligence you need to do. If you're investing $100 in something, you might do that off a whim. If you have to invest $10,000 in something, $100,000 in something, your due diligence has to go up. Your due diligence has to go up as the stake of your investment goes up. Okay, even with yourself. Okay, so consult people, consult experts, gather information, do research, and then you know make decisions that and then put together a plan where you feel like the decisions you make have a high probability of succeeding. And it may not be it may not play out exactly as you want, but at least you did your due diligence. Okay. All right. Um, Another way to invest. So the first way was invest in yourself. The second way, invest in others. So their business ideas. You might meet somebody and they have a great business idea, and you be like, damn, that's a good ass idea. Get it on the ground floor. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Invest in others. Or maybe they need some, or maybe they have a great idea, but they need some training, job training, or professional development. You can invest in that. If you believe in it. But again, be careful and make sure you're doing your due diligence before investing in anything. And the higher your investment, the higher your due diligence needs to be. Okay. A little side note in terms of investing in others. Invest in your young people. So if you have a child, if you have a son or a daughter, if you have a niece or a nephew that you would like to set up some financial stability, set up a Roth IRA from them from the beginning. Um, if you set up a Roth IRA at year one of a young person's life, and you put $100 a month into that, by the time they are 50 or 60, they will have $1 million. They have $1 million, but just by you putting in $100 a month, $1,200 a year, and that's just the minimum. So if they get a job when they're in high school and they want to throw in $25 a month, or if they get a job while they're in college, or even their first profession as they get into their professional career, and they're like, yo, I want to put more money into this thing per month. I want to put in $100 a month. Now you're talking about a millionaire by the time you're 40, 45. Compound interest. Compound interest. Look it up. It's the key. Long term investing. Okay. So, long story short, if you have a child, if you have a niece or a nephew, if you have somebody that you care about that's young and you want to set them up for future financial success, set them up with a Roth IRA from the very beginning, invest money into it monthly, and just let the compound interest do the work. Just let the compound interest do the work. And we call that easy money. Okay. Um, Another way to invest, you can invest in outside assets and economies. Okay, so we're gonna go slow through this one. You can invest in the stock market. There's the US stock market, there are other stock markets attached to other countries. Um, and obviously, not obviously, the stock market is made up of individual businesses that exist within that country. So the US stock market consists of businesses that are not grounded. Their home base is in the US. Okay. So you're investing in businesses in a certain location. You can invest in currencies. And currencies are like the dollar for America. I think like maybe the yen is Chinese, or maybe the yuan. I don't know. I don't invest in currency, so I can't really tell you, but I do know people can make money through investing in currencies. And basically what you're doing is you're buying it at one price, you're trying to buy low and sell high. So you buy the currency, every currency has a value in the global market, and you buy it at one value, and then the value of the currency goes up, you sell it at that value, you make the difference. Okay, so you can do that. Government bonds. Government bonds. Government bonds are actually probably the safest bet in terms of investing if you're not much of a gambler, because government bonds are essentially like lending money to the government and then they pay it back to you with interest. So basically you're reversing the role. You're the bank now. And instead of you receiving the loan, you're giving the loan. So let's say you give $10,000 to the US government, they will actually pay interest on that money per year. And then after a certain amount of time, whether it be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they will pay the entire sum back to you. And unless you think a government is about to, you want to obviously invest in stable governments. But if you think your government is going to be around in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, then this is a safe investment. There's actually not anything more. If you're going to invest money that you're not actively looking over and monitoring, the government, the government is the way to go, because they can print money literally, and they're gonna make sure you get your get back. So government bonds is one way. Real estate is another way. I want you to be careful with real estate though. Real estate is super, super tricky, super, super risky. Also, very big reward. So it's big risk, big reward. It's probably the one investment that takes the most in terms of initial investment. Because if you want to invest in the stock market, you can invest in the stock market with $100. You can invest in currencies with $100, less than that. Government bonds, same thing. Real estate, though, you may be looking at a down payment on a property. You may be looking at renovations, closing costs, et cetera, can easily get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Um, and so so like we were talking about due diligence versus investment. If you're going to invest in real estate, your due diligence has to be through the roof. Multiple cross references in terms of what you're spending your money on, multiple cross checks in terms of what you're spending your money on. Um, yeah. And another thing with real estate is that it's very important that your first real estate bet be a winner. Because if real estate goes left, if your real estate investment goes left, it can actually end up costing you money, going into debt, things of that nature. So you really want to make sure your first real estate investment is safe, secure, and going to make you money. But real estate can be very, very fruitful if you're put in the right situation. But do your due diligence for sure. Crypto. Crypto is also tricky because it's so new. Um, I tell this story all the time, man. I had a friend who at the beginning of Bitcoin, we had a group chat, and he was telling us about Bitcoin. He was like, this is the thing. This is like way before Bitcoin hit. Um, and I'm super like conservative when it comes to investing. So I was like, not really. Long story short, though, he had like a handful of coins. He just had a handful of coins. It was maybe like a dozen, maybe like 12 or 13 Bitcoins. And he bought them early, super early. He was like, I know this is going to be the thing. And that shit hit. Obviously, if you track crypto and you track Bitcoin, you know it hit. And so the funny thing is that when it hit and Bitcoin went through the roof, crypto went through the roof, and that whole wave was happening, he cashed out. My man left the group chat. I still have not talked to that brother to this day. And I'm talking about that. That was like maybe like 10 years ago. And I still have not talked to this brother to this day. None of us have. He took that money and he ran. My point is this. Crypto is very volatile. It's still in the early stages of government regulation, which is always a concern. Um, and I would just be careful with it. I would be careful with it. My personal opinion is I think crypto is going to, I think it's here to stay. I think it's going to be a permanent part of our economic landscape. I think though the maximum gains, if you didn't get in on that wave that came like a few years ago, if you didn't get in on that, I think the next major wave is really going to be when maybe like years down the road, when technology starts to advance, AI starts to advance, and other system, blockchain, all these systems start to advance with each other, and then crypto will become a more valuable asset in that sense, because of the attributes that it has. Um, but it's something to look into. It's something to research in case you're trying to invest. Okay. Okay. How? Okay. The thing. Okay. Let's start here. How to invest in the U.S. stock market. The U.S. stock market has had an upward trajectory since its inception. Day one, like this. All it does is go up. That's not true. It goes up and it goes down. Over the long term, though, it goes up. That's all it does. It has an average of 10% annually. So whatever money you invest, you get 10% back annually. That's its average. Sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower, depending on different economic cycles. But the average is 10%. Now, I want you to think about that. Since its inception, since it started, it was created. I don't know when that was. Maybe, let's see. I don't know. A little around 100 years ago. I don't know. I'll fact check it. But the point is, since it started, it's like this: 10% annual on average. Compare that to the 0.01% you're getting from the money sitting in your bank account right now. Okay. The money in your bank account doesn't even outpace inflation. So you're actually losing money. The money that you put in 5 years ago that's been sitting in there is actually worth less now because of inflation. Okay. So it's actually it's losing value every minute that it's in there. However, if you were to take that money and you were to invest in the US stock market, the only way you lose, like this since inception, the only way you lose is if you think the US economy is going to collapse. Collapse. If you think the US economy is going to collapse, don't invest in the US stock market. If you think the US economy might be around for another, at the minimum, few hundred years, invest in the US stock market. You're going to get average 10% every year. Consult a financial advisor, they're going to tell you the same thing. And if the US stock market collapses, that basically means the US economy has collapsed. And if the US economy has collapsed, trust me, you have way bigger problems on your plate than whatever money you have invested. We'll get into that later, but feel this train of thought that I'm going down. Okay. So how to invest in the US stock market? And again, you can do this for any country. You can invest in the Chinese stock market. You can invest in the Brazilian stock market. You can invest in any stock market. I'm only talking about the US stock market because that's the one I'm familiar with. But if there's an international business that you feel like you want to invest in, you can do that as well. But I'm talking about particularly about the US stock market, how to do that. You can invest in individual stocks. So like a stock of one stock of Apple might be $200. You just bought a stock in Apple, it goes up, the value of your stock goes up. So you can invest in individual stocks, and it's like that for every individual business that's listed on the stock market. Not all businesses in the US are listed on the stock market, but the big ones are. So you can invest in individual stocks. You can invest in groups of stocks. So like ETFs or index funds or mutual funds. Those are groups of stocks that are bundled together. It helps mitigate your risk because, so for example, if I put $10,000 into Apple, for some reason Apple goes bankrupt tomorrow, I lose that $10,000. If I put $10,000 into a technology index fund made up of Apple, Microsoft, uh, uh, a bunch of other technology companies, Meta, whatever. One company fails, the whole index fund doesn't fail. So I might lose a little bit, but I don't lose everything. And it's based on the aggregate of the performance of all the stocks that are in that fund. So it's a way to kind of hedge your bet and not put it all on one thing. And then you can actually also do stock slices. So like I said, Apple, using the example of Apple, Apple is about around $200 a share, whatever the case may be. If you don't feel like spending $200 on one share of one company, you can buy $10, $15 worth of Apple stock. And granted, it's going to be proportionate to the value of the stock. So it's going to be, whatever $10, $15 is of 200, it's going to be that. So you gotta think about that. But if you want to get into, if you like, yo, I really want to own Apple stock, but I don't want to pay $200 for a share, get into stock slices. Stock slices, you can buy portions of stocks, and your loss and your gain is proportional to the money that you put in versus the amount that the stock is valued at. Right. So you can take $200 and invest in 20 companies whose stock might be out of your range if each one of those stock prices is $100, $200, whatever the case may be. Okay. Um, and so yeah, get if that's something you're interested in, get with a reputable financial brokerage firm that does this kind of thing, and they will walk you through it. They'll have people you can call. They'll have a helpline. They'll have people that are willing, ready, willing, and able to take your money. And you can work with them on getting started in the stock market. I highly suggest it though. It is a can't lose situation again, unless the whole U.S. economy collapses, and then we're in a whole different situation. Which brings me to my next point. Um, Actually, no. Before we get there, there's a couple different kinds of investing, which is you buy and hold, which is essentially, so going back to the Apple example, you buy a stock of Apple and you're like, I'm just going to hold this joint. I know Apple is going to be successful. I know Apple stock is going to rise over the next 1, 5, 10 years. I'm just going to hold this joint. I'm going to buy as much of that as I can and I'm going to hold it. Or you split that up amongst index funds, whatever. The other is trying to time the market. Timing the market is essentially um, using the Apple stock. I'm gonna buy this Apple stock. I think Apple stock is gonna go up in a certain amount of time. So I'm gonna buy it at this. I'm gonna buy it at $200. Yo, I think it's gonna be up to 250 by next year. So I'm gonna buy as much of this Apple stock as I can, and then once it hits 250, I'm gonna sell it off, and I'm gonna take the profit. I would highly suggest, especially if you're a new investor, don't do that. Timing the market is very difficult. Timing the market is difficult for experts who study this daily. And unless you are spending hours per day researching trends, economic trends, global political trends, unless you're doing that and you're putting the work in terms of really doing that research, trying to time the market can be very difficult. And from my experience, I've seen more losses, not personally, because I don't try to time the market, but from the experience of investing, I've seen more losses than gains in trying to time the market because it's just so unpredictable. It's just so unpredictable, even if you do research it. Much more reliable is the buy and hold. I'm going to invest in the U. I'm going to invest in the S&P 500, which is the U.S. stock market, the top 500 companies. I'm going to invest in that. I'm going to throw $10,000 in that, and I'm just going to let it sit there. I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not going to worry about it. I know for a fact because it goes like this. I know in 5 years it's going to be up. I know in 10 years it's going to be even more up. I know in 20 years it's going to be even more up. I know that because that's all that's ever happened. So buy and hold but it takes patience and it takes discipline. And it has to be money that you don't need. Like, don't invest money in the stock market that you need to pay your rent or to pay your bills. This has to be money that you're willing to lose. This has to be money that you're willing to see depreciate. Um, and this has to be money that you're maybe willing never to see again. Put it in, let it go like this, sit back, buy and hold. Okay. All right. Now we're gonna get into some deeper levels. So we've talked about making money, we've talked about saving money, we've talked about investing money, and we've talked about levels. And now we're about to get into some serious levels. So think about economics as more than just money. Okay. It is a means of exchange used to barter resources. That's what money really is. The dollar bills in your pocket, the dollar amount in your bank account, it is all a means to exchange for resources. Okay. Paper money only has value because we as a collective society agree on that value. We agree that $1 bill has a certain amount of value. We agree that $100 bill has a certain amount of value. And we exchange resources and barter according to those values. Paper money has very little literal value. Even precious metals, gold, silver, platinum, whatever, have very little literal value. Okay. So for full protection, it's important to protect yourself on all these levels that we're about to go through. Um, but let's start where we are in here in 2023. So this first level, right? Like we talked about, you want to have some money invested in something that's giving you consistent returns without you having to do much work, ideally. So that could be the stock market, that could be real estate, that could be government bonds, et cetera, et cetera. All right. You're putting some money in, you're just letting it sit there and it's growing without you even doing anything. That's the level, that's this first level that we're talking about. Okay. Because like we talked about, the money sitting in your bank account is not doing anything. It's actually doing it's actually doing negative because the interest rates that you make on the money sitting in your bank account, most major banks, I should say, are not outpacing inflation. So you're actually losing money. The money you put in there 5 years ago is worth less than it is right now. Okay. Um, you could also, so you can do that, or you could also invest in some businesses. Investing in businesses is a little riskier because returns are not guaranteed. If the business fails, your money's gone. And there's usually an unpredictable timeline. Like you invest money, and depending on how the business goes, will depend on if and when you get your money back. It can be rewarding if it works out. It can also be it can take your money if it doesn't work out. So you want to think about that. And I want to reiterate this. In situations like this, so real estate, investing in businesses, and when I say businesses, I mean not the stock market, because investing in Apple, I would not consider that investing in a business. I mean, it is investing in a business, but that's more so investing in the stock market. I'm talking about like a local business around your area that maybe you're in with the owner, or maybe you want to, you think it's a good idea, it's going to succeed, a restaurant, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking more on the local level, or maybe it doesn't even have to be the local level. I guess. What's the differentiation? It's not a major business. Okay. Because that investing in Apple is going to be a winner regardless. Investing in Amazon is going to be a winner regardless. Investing in your local restaurant may not be a winner. That's what I'm talking about. So when you're investing in a business, do not invest money in a business that you are not willing to see depreciate or possibly lose altogether. And of course, do your due diligence because, again, the higher your investment, the higher your due diligence should be. Okay. But the bottom line here is that you're investing in something that is working and accumulating value without you having to do anything. making money as you sleep, as they say. Okay. So that's one level. That's one level that you want to have secured away and be actively doing in your current life. The next level, and just in terms of protection, digital investments, electronic investments are good, which is what we were just talking about. Um, but it's also good to have something tangible. Tangible. Okay. You cannot trust the computers with everything. You cannot trust the banks with everything because at the end of the day, it's just ones and zeros in some kind of matrix of a database that could go to zero if the wrong thing happens. It is definitely not 100% dependable. We've seen bank runs, we've seen banks fail, we've seen all that. Someone could hack a bank tomorrow and turn all the balances to zero, transfer all that money. Okay. The bank could collapse and then your balance turns to zero. Now, granted, with most banks, it's FDI and in FDIC insured to a certain amount. I wouldn't want to depend on that though. If a major bank fails and it has millions of customers, it's just not 100% dependable because again, you're still even dependent on the system to get that back for you if they don't try to swindle you out of money, whatever money you had in there. Because how can you show proof of whatever money you had in there if the electronic system go down? Maybe you have some paper bank statements. Do you have any paper bank statements? Anyway, my point is it's not 100% dependable. Anything electronic, digital is not 100% dependable. You need to have some physical assets on hand. So have currencies on hand, some foreign currencies. Definitely have your local currency on hand, an abundant amount in case the banks go left. Okay. Or in case the electronic system of the electronic financial system goes left. Maybe have some precious metals on hand if that's your thing: gold, silver, platinum, copper. Because in this scenario, those are still those still have some value and can be exchanged in a exchange for resources. Um, but I just want to reiterate: if banks go bad, if certain systems crash or are hacked, or anything happens to the electronic digital world, that money might as well not even exist. So you cannot depend on it 100%. Which brings us to the third level or the next level, um, which is the most practical level of resources, wealth, finances that you should be holding. So let's get into that. So this practical level that I'm talking about, mind you, if we are here, um, we are in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. We are chilling with Denzel in the Book of Eli. It means that social systems have collapsed or completely crashed, and survival is on a very basic level. Okay. Now, for the people that think society would never crash and that this would never happen, I hear you. And remember, it's always better to be prepared. Okay. It's better always to have and not need than need and not have, especially in a scenario like this where it comes to the survival of you and your family and your loved ones. Um, this is a level where you have to have very, again, practical things, either for use or for barter. This is a place where batteries, iodine pills, even a pack of lighters are more valuable than $10,000 in $100 bills. Because in this scenario, those $100 bills aren't going to do anything for you. They're just paper. Um, and actually, they're most valuable quality is probably lighting them on fire and keeping you warm. um, but they're not gonna in this scenario, nobody's gonna take your $100 bills for resources. Because what can they do with it? The same thing you can do with it. Nada. Nada. It's just a fancy piece of paper. So, you know, this is a scenario where seeds, food seeds, are more valuable than gold and silver. You know, you can have 100 pounds of silver, 100 pounds of gold. I'll take, I'll take the tomato and kale seeds because again, what is that gold and silver going to do for you in this scenario where the systems have collapsed? They're expensive paperweights. So thinking you got to really shift your mindset. Okay. Um, think about the things that you really need for survival. So a generator would be good to have. Multiple generators would be good to have. So you could power things, power your house, whatever. Gasoline, fuel would be valuable. For the generator, for your vehicle, for whatever you may have that runs off of gasoline or fuel, but it would also be valuable in terms of trading. Um, maybe even solar powered. Anything solar, like if you get a solar powered generator, that's even better because the sun never doesn't run out of energy, at least not in this lifetime. So if you can have a generator that runs off solar power or a house that runs off solar power, now you're really tapping in. Um, yeah, you don't want to depend on fuel because in this scenario, especially if you don't know when it's going to end, fuel is going to be a limited resource, which means eventually your access to it is going to not be there, and so you can't depend on it. This has to be all things that you can depend on. Um, a water source and a means to clean the water. Do you know how to find your own water source? Do you know how to clean it if it's not drinkable? Um, got to learn those skills. So there are a lot of water filters on the market that you can get that are effective. Iodine tablets that clean water are effective. Um, food, food is a necessity. So learning to hunt, learning to trap, learning to fish, all valuable. Like we spoke about before, seeds, food seeds, farming, probably the most valuable skill of all in this scenario. Because obviously, if you are in a good harmony and relationship with the farming area around you, you can sustain yourself indefinitely, barring any unforeseen circumstances. You can grow that food season after season. A surplus of canned goods in your house, a surplus of water, bottled water, gallons of water in your basement or your attic. Dry food is good. Some of the things I mentioned before, batteries to keep electronic devices going, at least for a time, at least until you can get settled into a new way of life. A pack of lighters. The ability to make fire is probably one of the most important things that exists on a basic fundamental survival level. Watch any survival show. Or you take it a level further, go spend a weekend in the wilderness. You will see how valuable fire is and the ability to make fire and the trouble people go through to make fire. If you have a lighter that can just fire, that's worth $1 million. Trust me. Um, because it just has a multitude of just uses in terms of preparing food and even you keeping warm in keeping staying warm in cold environments. Fire is critical. A flashlight, first aid kit, compass. Have these things. Have these things. Okay, in case things go left. Basics of communication. In this scenario, we're Mad Maxing it, so cell phones are most likely not a thing. Internet usage is probably severely restricted if it exists at all. So you need some type of communication device that could be maybe an AM, FM, old school radio. It could be walkie talkies that have range for a few miles, maybe even longer, depending on what other things are in play. Satellite phones, if you can get that beforehand, um, are usually very dependable. But you might need some means of communicating with either people in your immediate vicinity or people who like your immediate circle, or even people who might be out there, like way out there. You need a means to communicate with them. Last but not least, remember that when it comes down to the come down, and when push comes to shove and people are desperate, the least common denominator in terms of human existence is violence. Now, you may not want to think about this, but trust me, you would rather be in a situation where you've thought about it versus catching yourself in a situation where you're unprepared. Okay. The person or persons who are able to impose their will on others by physical force will be in the best position to collect and keep resources in this scenario. The person or persons who are able to impose their will on others by physical force will be in the best position to collect and keep resources. So have some weapons. That might be knives, it might be guns if they're available. Make sure you have ammo. Make sure you know how to shoot. At least be able to decently hit a target. Okay. Physical force and violence is what human nature resorts to in desperation. And when resources are short, we are in desperation. So don't get caught unprepared. There's also a level of security to be found in community, ironically enough. Connection and collaboration with good people can go a long way in any of these scenarios, but emphasis on good people. Because if they are not good people, you could be sowing the seeds of your own downfall. And even people perceived as good can turn sour when faced with desperation. Survival brings the animal out in humans. We resort back to our animal instinct. I will kill, I will do whatever it takes to survive. When people are desperate, ethics, morals can go out the window. Not trying to get you down. I just want you to be prepared. If you prepare yourself on these levels, and again, preparation means beforehand. So don't wait till this shit hits the fan to start doing all this. Get this in line beforehand. Um, but I want you to be prepared. So to summarize, have yourself covered on all these levels. Everything's cool in November of 2023. We're chilling. Invest some money, have it working for you. Cool. Banks aren't failing too much. Cool. Have some currency on hand. Just kind of like as a stopgap, just in case. Cool. Shit goes super left. We're in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Have some practical survival stuff on you. Cool. Okay. You're going to if you have these levels covered, all these levels covered, you're going to put yourself in the best position to survive and thrive now and in the future for you and your loved ones. Okay. Be diversified, be prepared, be informed. Okay. This is the best advice I can give you on financial literacy. Hold on. Do y'all see this necklace I'm wearing though? I can't even get it to the yo, listen. This is carnelian and this is the carnelian and amethyst mothership. Got to get on these gemstones, yo. Got to get on these gemstones. I'm gonna put a link in the description of the video where you can get you some gemstones. You ain't gonna get nothing like this because this is one of one, but I can hook you up with something similar. All right. Listen, I love y'all. Stay prepared. Think about now, think about the future. We're gonna make it. Peace and love.